station. Welcome back, my friend. This is Mr. Alan in the world of toys. And today I have a very special guest. Return to my channel, an awesome artist, an awesome man. I give you the one and the only, William Stout. Welcome, William.
Glad to be here, Alan.
Thank you so much to come back on my channel, because I remember the last conversation we did together was awesome. A lot of story, a lot of stuff, and I'm very happy to have you again on my channel. So welcome back, Bill.
Oh, thank you. I had so much fun. I agreed to come back immediately.
Thank you so much. And you know that in the audience of my channel, we have a lot of Masters of the Universe fans. So we need to start once again to talk about that movie. And I try to give you different questions.
Okay.
But many people ask me, oh, you get William. Oh, I want to talk about Master of the Universe. Okay. So I want to start a little bit about something that we talked about that also the last time. The throne room set. Can you tell me how many times was scheduled the creation for this big set?
Man, let's see. I think that big set came together in about a week or two. It was the biggest set that had been in Hollywood for about 40 years. I took 2 gigantic sound stages and knocked out the wall in between them. And then all that beautiful marble that you see in the set, that's all painted plywood. And what amazed me is the way they painted it. They painted it with mops. They didn't use brushes. They would just take big sloppy mops and somehow make the marble look so realistic. You had to get this far away from it to see that it was not real, that it was actually wood. It was not actual marble. It was extraordinary. Because of the size of that set and how spectacular it was, everybody in Hollywood wanted to come see it. So we had movie stars and film producers and film directors and actors and actresses. Everybody wanted to see this giant set because they hadn't seen one like that in so many years. And they all wanted to have their picture taken on the throne, to the seat of power to all the universe, of course.
Awesome.
So yeah, that became the big photo op.
And what happened later, after the end of the movie? What happened with the big set? Was destroyed? What happened for the parts? Everything was destroyed.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in America, we have a bad habit of wasting all that lumber, building those beautiful sets, and then tearing them down and destroying them. I think the English are much smarter in that they have, instead of wood, they'll have mechanical poles and nuts and things, so they can reuse that material over and over again to make new sets and not have to cut down another forest. So one of the interesting things about the Masters of the Universe throne room set is I collaborated with my friend Jean Giraud on its design. He's known to most people as Mobius or Moebius. And we worked together to design that set, and there was a great idea I got from his sketches, and that is when you see the set, they're all what we call the space gods lining that pathway, and then below it, below floor level, are all these sort of gargoyle creatures. Because my feeling was that since this is the seat of power to all the universe, power is neither bad nor good. It's what you make of it. So I had to show the dark elements of power as well as the light elements of power.
Awesome. And what is your first impression, first reaction when you saw the set complete for the first time?
Well, that's one of my favorite things in the world is I'll sit there and I'll do drawings on a piece of paper or a piece of illustration board and then hand that off to my carpenters and painters. And then they make this magical thing that looks so incredible. And I think, wow, I created this, and here it is. I can actually live and walk through my own creation, and it feels fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
it's
did
very,
you?
you very much get the feeling of being a god.
Awesome. Also, because I imagine this the biggest set ever made was created from you, and also the satisfaction. I believe it was a big satisfaction for that. I believe.
Yeah, well, and it turned out so beautiful. That's what made me so happy. I mean, we tried out I think about a dozen different marble painters till we found the people that could do it exactly so it looked like beautiful marble. I had the same experience down in Mexico when I was making Conan the Destroyer. We had some marble sets in that, and once again, you had to get up just inches away to see that it wasn't really marble, that it was just painted plywood. Extraordinary what those guys can do.
Awesome. We remember many characters. Some characters you created especially for the movie that never exist before for the Master of the Universe. For example, Blade. Oh, by the way, on this channel, I believe last month, I did an interview with Anthony DeLongis.
Oh, great. I made 2 movies with him. We
Yeah,
made Masters of the Universe together, and then I wrote the film The Warrior and the Sorceress. And he was in that as a sword guy. Plus, he was the guy who figured out all the sword stunts and things for both movies. He's a great guy. He's also an expert with a whip.
Yes, he told me that he's a cool man, Anthony DeLongis. And we talks about his expertise of sword and weapon. He told me also some behind the scene about this rule of Blade and Master of the Universe also.
What did he say?
Yes, you can maybe later I give you the link of my interview with Anthony if you want to take a closer look.
Yeah.
Should be cool. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe I don't know if it's possible because maybe both you and Anthony are busy. But have you both in the same time should be cool in the same.
Oh, that'd be neat.
Have you both together in a stream together?
Yeah. Plus, I love the guy. He's a super nice guy.
Yes, he is. And speaking of the characters, you created many characters that we saw, but you created also some characters that didn't appear in the movie. You remember some of them and maybe the name?
Oh, I don't remember the names, but I know I did dozens and dozens and dozens of different characters, proposing different characters for the film. I designed Blade completely by myself. I also designed Sorod. I designed Karg. I designed the initial costume for Evelyn, of course, Skeletor. The character of Wielder was designed by me and Joe Griffith, and also the Italian guy on the movie. Oh gosh, now I can't remember his name. But yeah, it was a collaboration, that character. And then I designed the exterior of where Wielder lived, and then Joe Griffith designed the interior of his home and his workshop.
Okay, because I don't know if it's true, but on the web I saw something about maybe some character. I don't know if it's true, but I give you this information that I find it. A character called Arachno is possible.
It's possible.
Because I saw something, a character called Arachno, a man with many eyes, like something close to a spider, but not a spider. Another called Mentoid is possible. I don't know.
It's definitely possible. You know,
because I read this stuff on the web, but I don't know it's official. If this guy is, I don't remember also the name of the site, but I try to make some search. So you don't remember some name, some other character that wasn't in the show, in the movie.
I created so many that I've forgotten them. But you know what? About 6 months ago, I was approached by a German Masters of the Universe magazine, and they wanted to do an interview with me, and we did the interview, and then they wanted art to go with the interview. So I said, how much would you like? They said, how much can you send us? So I sent them over 130 pieces of art. And it all got printed in the magazine. The magazine, it was a book about that thick, I think about 400 pages. And you can buy the magazine in Germany, or you can buy it on my website. But that has all of those characters that you named. Almost every single drawing that I did for the film is in that book.
Wow. So it's interesting. I think it's interesting, but you actually don't remember each character because you did a lot of character that never happened in the show.
I did a lot, and it was a long time ago.
Yes, exactly. Approximately, how many characters you created? Approximately.
Oh, I would say at least 3 dozen, at least 36 or 40, or maybe even 50.
Wow. Maybe some of that character should be at that time used for the Never Happened sequel. Some of that character.
That'd be great.
Yes.
I'd love to do a sequel to Masters. That would be. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yes, I want to you also about another things that we talked last time. If you see something that fly is just because I have the light and comes to me. I forget once again the name of the butterfly that fly only in the night. I don't know. I don't remember once again the name.
Oh, moths.
The moths, exactly.
Yes.
And they fly, and so if you see something that flies because of that, because I use the light, every window is open, and they are so attractive by the fly. Yeah. Like Skeletor was so attractive by the power.
Yes, exactly. Did we talk about Frank Langella?
Yes.
Because he's had an extraordinary career, but his favorite role of all time is Skeletor. It's just amazing when I found that out.
I remember we talked also a little bit about the project of the possible snake mounting in the movie. Can you tell me something about, if you remember, because it's once again something that never happened, but how was the concept of your version of the snake mounting?
Well, it was very dark, and it was very huge in scale. I figured we would accomplish that since we didn't have a budget to make things full size. One of the special effects tricks I love a lot is an old-fashioned special effects trick called hanging miniatures. That's where you hang a miniature in front of the camera, and it looks like the actors are part of this thing, and it looks like they're in a huge place, but they're not really. They're just standing on a stage. And so I had done a lot of designs for Snake Mountain. I also did a lot of designs for Eternia. Originally, in the original script, Eternia was in about the first third of the movie. And then that all got cut except for some outdoor battle scenes and the throne room scenes. So there's a lot of stuff that falls by the wayside, but that's not unusual. Usually in the films that I've worked on, usually about a third of what I read in the first script gets removed, usually for budgetary reasons.
Okay, when the reality comes to the dream idea, something will be. It happened also for the novel, for example. The last novel that I published in Italy was cut a little bit because if you publish a book with 500 pages, the cost of the book become bigger, so you need to cut some chapter. It's not easy cut something of you, but you need to do that to publish that.
Yeah, I didn't know they did that with books. They do that with movies all the time, but books, I just thought the book is as long as the writer wants to make it.
No, especially if you are not so popular. But also, I read something about Stephen King. He told that he republished some book that was cut in the beginning, because when he started his career, I read something about his biography. He told that he cut many part of his novels, and later, when he becomes so popular, he republished again the real version of the book. So
yeah, I read in an interview with Stephen King that he never sets out to write a big book. It's just something that happens during the process. The book keeps growing and getting larger and longer and longer and longer.
Yes, I understand that because, for example, we talked about that also last time. As a writer, I schedule nothing for my story. I just choose a playlist of. I create a soundtrack for my story. I get the phones and I start to write and following the river of my creativity. And it's like a travel, a journey in another world of their creativity. So when I start, I don't know what is the number of the page, what is the size of this novel. I discovered that only in the end of the first edition of my book.
Yes, you have to let the art take on the life of its own. The art itself will determine how long, how small, how large it will be.
I believe it's the same time when you created something about your heart, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me something, what is your, not your style, your process for your creation, a little bit.
Oh, and well, with film, it all starts with the screenplay. That becomes my Bible. And the first thing I do is I read the screenplay, and then I read it again, and I make notes on how many sets there's going to be. When I have that list of sets, then I know how realistic the producers are. If there's 80 or 100 sets, I know, no way, is that they're never going to do that. But if there's about 20 sets, yeah, that's probably very realistic. And so then I make a list of all the characters, and I write little histories of each character, how they grew up, where they grew up, what their parents were like, what kind of food they liked. This is all information to make these characters real to me, because I figure if they're not real to me, then I cannot hope for them to be real to the audience. So I have to believe in them first. I did a thing with Courtney Cox's character in Masters of the Universe. There's a shot of her bedroom, and so I designed the bedroom, and then in the dresser drawers, I filled the drawers with all of her things. I filled some with clothes, some with her drawings, some of art supplies and different things. Now, and then closed the drawers. Now, we were never going to see what was in the drawers in the movie, but I watched Courtney Cox when she first went on that set, and she was looking at the set, and she's taking it in. Oh, this is my character. This is my character. And then she walked over the drawers and opened the drawers, and her face just lit up because I had all her things, her character's things in the drawers, and it made the acting for her so much more realistic because she now believed in herself that she was that character.
Wow, this is the magic of the heart.
Yes. Absolutely.
It also is a good test to understand that you follow it the right way to create the character, also the set, also in the same time.
Yeah, if I'm designing a creature, for example, I look at everything that creature has to do. Does it fly? Does it walk? Does it run? Has it got big sharp teeth? Has it got claws? What does it do in the movie? And I have to design a creature that does things in the movie that seem natural to that creature, to make that creature believable as well.
And speaking of creature, tell me a little bit the inspiration for maybe each characters of the Master of the Universe. Like Beastman, what is your inspiration to create this character?
Well, Beastman was one of the few characters that were already in the Marvel, not the Marvel, the Masters of the Universe world, because they were a toy. So we knew we wanted to have some of the characters from the original toys, and Beastman was one. But I wanted the Beastman to be more interesting and more realistic and to have a greater presence in the film than he would if I had just copied the toy. So one of the things I came up with is, I don't know if this shows up in the film or not, but on his pants, there are handprints. And when he was called by Skeletor to come join Skeletor, all of Beastman's best warriors came to the Beastman. They put paint on their hands, and then they put the hands on his pants to give him their power. So that's an example of digging deeper into the character and making and sort of imagining his culture and what he was like in his own world. Then with Blade, we only had the name Blade, but I thought, well, obviously this man is in his Blade. So I came up with a costume that to me was sort of bordered on superhero, but at the same time was a little bit like Errol Flynn in his swashbuckling movies. I wanted him to look natural as a character who used knives and swords for a living. And then I believe I had the one eye patched because that was from an old injury from an old battle when he was young, still learning how to sword fight. And so I'm making the character real for me so that it's real for the audience. With Karg, there was no Karg in the script. We were still just designing characters. And I came up with this character. I thought, well, we should have at least one little guy. I mean, we have a little guy with the good guys, that's Wielder. But I'll design a bad little guy. And so that was Karg. And I based his face on that of bats. I love bat faces. They're very strange, weird faces. But since he was a little guy, I also gave him a huge hat because little guys don't want to seem like a little guy. They want to seem larger. So by giving him a taller hat, it gave him more height. So it made him feel more powerful. With Evelyn, I was inspired by the Norma Desmond character in Sunset Boulevard, a film by Billy Wilder. It's a film about a movie star who was a great silent actress, and now she is living alone in her dark, dark home away from the film industry. And she has gone slightly insane in this world. And I thought that would be perfect for Evelyn because she seems like she's slightly insane. She would have to be to do all the evil things that she does. The one thing I did with her that didn't make it to the film and I really regret is I gave her a big bushy hair, very dark hair. And in the hair were little pearls and diamonds shining. Because to me, long hair on a woman is a symbol of sexual power. And I wanted her to have that feeling of power. But the director insisted that she get a haircut. And later told me it was a big mistake, that he shouldn't have done that. They should have kept the big bushy hair. Let's see. Saurod was mentioned in the script, but there was no description whatsoever. But I thought, well, Saurod, S-A-U-R, that means lizard. So he must be reptilian. So I designed this reptilian character. I even designed his contact lenses for his eyes. And when I design creatures, I always insist that we have to use an actor in the suit, never a stuntman, because the actor will bring that character to life. And fortunately, we got some brilliant actors in those suits. And Saurod was played by Pons Maar, who is also a puppeteer. And he had a wonderful way of moving in a very reptilian manner. In fact, he was everyone's favorite character, and everybody was very upset that he's the first guy that gets killed.
Yes.
So you don't get to see him in the rest of the movie.
Yes, I know that we talked about the destiny of Sora also with Anthony DeLonge because everybody in the Master of the Universe fandom knows that everyone was unhappy because he dies too early in the movie. This character also because it was another cool character that you created. And your inspiration for Wielder?
Oh, Wielder. Okay. We knew we wanted to have a humorous, colorful, gnome-like little creature or character. We knew we were going to get Billy Barty in the suit and in the makeup. Billy Barty, he was in the original Wizard of Oz in 1939. He was one of the Munchkin babies hatching out of the eggs in the nest in Munchkin Land. So this guy, boy, he has the history of Hollywood in his head. He's been there for so long and seen so many things. He was amazing. And one of my favorite things was every day I would go on set because I'm a very hands-on production designer. And each morning I feel something tugging on my coat. And I turn around and it was Billy. And Billy would have a new joke for me every day. I love that about him. He was just a wonderful guy. So we tried a lot of different approaches to Wielder, as you'll see if you get that German Masters book. He was. I tried giving him a very long mustache to me because that was suggestive of a Mandarin, of a very wise man. So I thought, since he's the inventor, he is the wise person in this film because he comes up with all the different things that are sort of magical, including the cosmic key. So we had one surprise character. I didn't know it, but I came to work one day and they said, where's the designs for the contest winner? I go, contest winner? What are you talking about, contest winner? We didn't know it, but Mattel had a contest to be in the movie. And this little kid had won the contest. And they were supposed to be shooting him that very day. And so in about 5 minutes, I designed his face. And another 5 minutes, I designed his costume. I Xeroxed that and handed those to the makeup guy and the costume designer. And we had him on costume on set within hours. It was amazing. Yeah. But it was a total surprise to us. We had no idea there was going to be this extra character. And since
the name of this character, what is the name of this character?
I forgot the real name, but we called him Little Pig Boy because he had a nose sort of like a pig's nose. But I think his name was Mata Shai in the film. Matashai.
Okay, and your inspiration for this character, what is that?
Was to get it done and on set on time.
Okay.
That was the inspiration. Plus, I also had a little fun with giving him a piggy nose. It was my way of just sort of bothering Mattel.
And your version of Man at Arms, what is your inspiration to create this character?
Well, I love that character because I thought the story needed an older character, a character who was older than He-Man, and Man at Arms was perfect for that. And so I designed a costume that mixed elements of high tech with it, but also he could use weapons like swords and different things. And then his daughter? Is Tila his daughter?
Tila's daughter, yes.
So I had thank yous from all the male crew members on the film for the design of the back of her costume. It's beautiful, beautiful woman. Chelsea Field, incredibly beautiful woman. And so I designed a beautiful skin-tight costume for her that made all the men light up.
Awesome. And your version for He-Man, what is your inspiration? Because I believe that you want to create something different from the cartoon.
I knew we had to create something different because if we just put something that looked like the toy, I think that would be a total audience turnoff because he looked like he was a member of ABBA.
Yes.
He had the bangs and it was just like, to me, it looked really silly. And so again, I collaborated with my friend Mobius and we came up with a hairstyle that was much hipper. It was still blonde, but it was a little windswept. And then Jean came up with a great idea for his costume. He says, well, he's in a world civil war, and most able-bodied people are not able to do their regular jobs. They're fighting as warriors. So there was no one making armor or making weapons and stuff. So he would pick up pieces of machinery and from machines on the battlefield and strap them to his body, and that became his armor. And I thought that was a brilliant idea, but I couldn't get Mattel to agree with that. So he looks pretty much like the toy, except for that he has a decent haircut.
Yes, there is an interesting question by one of the fans. It says that it's been a long time since 1987 film came out, but if the sequel was to go ahead back then, did you have any ideas as how to progress the story, perhaps Hordak and the Horde?
Well, I would like to have more of the story take place on Eternia, for one. Just as a designer, that would be just a lot of fun for me. Although, in designing the real world of Masters of the Universe, I really enjoyed that too, because at that point in my career, I wasn't getting very many opportunities to do the real world. Usually it was worlds of fantasy, like Invaders from Mars or Conan the Barbarian, things like that. So it was a delight for me to design Robbie's Ribs and Chicken, where Courtney Cox works, because I got to design something in the real world, and it was a new challenge for me. But as far as a master sequel, it would have to have a good script. I always start with the script. That is my Bible. That tells me everything I need to know about what's going to make.
Is your first the script is your first inspiration to create your art?
Right. Usually in January, back then, in January I would receive 5 scripts of people wanting me to make their movies, and I would read each script. I would determine which script was the best, and I would go with that. Or if the script had a particular director I wanted to work with, that might affect my decision as well as what to do. So that year I got offered 5 films, and Masters of the Universe was one of them. And I liked the script. I liked Gary Goddard, and it looked like a fun project. It didn't look like it was going to take me a long time. Initially, I was hired to storyboard the movie. But as I was working on the storyboards, I was also coming up with designs for characters that Gary just loved. And Gary and I just hit it off. We shared a lot of the same passions. He's a big Jack Kirby fan, so am I. Jack was a good friend of mine. For those out there who don't know who Jack Kirby was, Jack Kirby created almost all the characters for the Marvel Universe. An amazing artist. And so if Gary came to me while I was doing a drawing and said, "Oh, that looks good. Can you Kirby it up a little bit?" I knew exactly what he was talking about. Whereas Jeffrey Kirkland, who was the production designer when I signed on to do the storyboards, he didn't know who Jack Kirby was, and he and Gary kept knocking heads. They couldn't agree on hardly anything. So eventually, Jeffrey left the film, and he recommended that I take over as production designer. And then I hit the ground running, and we had at least the art department had a very smooth production going. We were always on budget. We were always on time. I can't say that for the rest of the film crew, but the art department was always there.
Okay, in the original cartoon, we remember that was a little mage character called Orco. I don't know if you remember this.
Yes.
The idea of Wielder is for to replace the rules of that character, or is not related for that?
I think Wielder was created to replace Orco because Mattel wanted new toys to come out with the film. And so that was a way of having another new toy.
Okay. And we know that later something didn't work between Mattel and you for the toys.
Oh, well, there was a funny situation where we were in the middle of making the film, and the Mattel people were coming through, and they came into the art department, and they looked up on the walls and said, "Oh, that's going to be a great toy. Oh, that's going to be a great toy. That's going to be a great toy." And I said, "Gentlemen, we were hired to design the motion picture. We were not hired to design your next year's toy line. We need to renegotiate." And they about had a heart attack because they didn't want to renegotiate. And my goal was to have the designers of the characters get a percentage of the profits of the toys. That had never been done in Hollywood before. And so they fought very hard against it. They threatened to shut down the film 8 times. But we just kept working and kept working and kept working until finally they had to give in. And we established that precedent in the film business of designers receiving a share of the royalties of the toys that they design.
Yes. But later, many years later, Super 7 did awesome action figure for your characters.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yes.
And in fact, it was funny. I heard that Mattel said, "Oh, yeah, fine. You pay us this amount and you can do the characters." And they forgot about it. And then Mattel started getting the royalty checks from the Super 7 characters. And they're going, "Holy cow! These toys are making a fortune." And so they immediately took the license away from Super 7
Yes.
so that they could put the them out themselves. But I think that Super 7 renegotiated, and I think they're going to come out with another set of my characters, another 4 figures. But we haven't talked yet about that.
Yes, finger crossed, because that figures. I have that figures. I show you that figures last time.
It was beautiful work, beautiful job.
Yes, beautiful job. Yeah, exactly. And speaking of the actors on the movie, in my opinion, we know Frank Langella is awesome, but also Meg Foster did an awesome job to create the psychology of Evelyn.
Yes.
There
Those eyes of hers, they look like chips of ice with little black dots in them. They're absolutely incredible. And she's just a joy to work with. She is so enthusiastic, and so she's fun, she's great, she's smart, and she's a really good actress.
And was a backstory for a possible infatuation of falling in love by Evelyn to Skeletor, because in some scene looks like the Evelyn loves Skeletor a little bit.
I felt that way when I read the script. I felt that there's something between those two. Skeletor has the power. She is not on an equal footing with him. She is subservient to him. And sometimes she forgets that, and she gets chastised by Skeletor for forgetting that he is the one with all the power, not her. But I can tell that there was some chemistry between the two.
Yes, you feel that way when you watch the movie. So you create also a good backstory that you can feel, but you not touch very well because it's just a backstory. But it's interesting because when you create a backstory, details that can give you a possible backstory is a big goal for a movie, for a story, to have something that you can imagine that maybe you can see in the movie.
Right, because what happens a lot is when you're writing or when you're making a movie is the characters start to take on a life of their own, and you don't know where they're going to go. The characters themselves start to decide what they're going to say, what they're going to feel. And I think that's part of the magic of being a creative writer or artist or filmmaker.
Exactly. And speaking of another character, the transformation of Skeletor, the Golden God Skeletor, what is your inspiration to create this new version of Skeletor?
Well, that was a difficult problem because we hired Frank Langella. He's a great actor, so you want to see his face, right? But Skeletor doesn't have a face. He's got a skull. So I had to come up with a way where I made him look like a skull, but he could still act. You could still see what was going on in his eyes and underneath that makeup. And so that was a real challenge. It wasn't easy to do.
And in the golden version of Skeletor?
Yeah, that was fun. So Skeletor gets all the power in the world, and what does he do? He gets new clothes. So, but they're spectacular clothes, and I think I had them built by K&B. I'm pretty sure they were the ones who built the entire gold suit. Now, our costume designer, Julie Weiss, was very angry with me for that because she wanted Western Costume, who she had worked with for a long time, to build the suit. And I took her aside. I said, Julie, they aren't up to it. I've seen their work, and they don't get it. Whereas K&B really gets it. I gave them the drawing of Skeletor's gold face, and they sculpted the entire thing. When I turned it around, the back was exactly the way I imagined it without having even drawn it. So you always want to find people like that who can anticipate what your designs need to be. And that was where they really came in with flying colors. And I told Julie, I said, I'm not going to make a film that's less than it can be. I want it to be the most that it can be. And with K&B, they're going to give me the gold Skeletor that is just going to light up the screen.
Awesome. You find a person with a good chemistry with you because she's anticipating your idea. So you were in the same page in the creation.
Yes.
It's a rare thing because it's not easy find this type of chemistry with someone when you work in some project.
That's why a lot of filmmakers work with the same crew all the time. Like Clint Eastwood, he uses the same guys for every film because they so know each other. They know what Clint wants. They know what they need to do, and it makes for a much smoother running operation. It saves and that's one of the reasons. Well, I know it's one of the reasons that I started to lose interest in making films because I worked with an art director, Robert Howland. Robert was my art director on Return of the Living Dead, and he was my art director on Masters of the Universe. And I named Robbie's Ribs and Chicken after him. But he passed away after Masters of the Universe from AIDS. And it took a lot of the wind out of my sails. I thought it's not going to be as fun making movies without Robbie by my side and helping me with his energy and his sense of humor. So.
Yes, you lost maybe in the same time also the same chemistry, the same atmosphere. It's difficult to recreate the same things if the things was perfect with another person. It's not easy. It's difficult. I understand that. And speaking of the character again, you told me earlier that for the bad guys, you created many characters that never happened. Was the same things also for the heroic warrior, the good characters in the movie?
No, it was a little different. I wanted the bad guys to have a lot of variety, where that wasn't so much necessary with the good guys because we were focusing on He-Man and Tila, Man-at-Arms, and so I didn't want to design characters that were good guys that were too interesting because it would take away the attention from our main characters. So it was important for them to be who they were. Whereas audiences love to see all kinds of creatures and bad guys. It creates a different feeling. It's more delicious to enter the world of evil than it is to enter the world of good.
Yes, I know that because when I was a kid, my favorite in every show, every movie, were the bad guys.
Yeah, there you go.
My childhood hero was Dracula. I remember when my father showed me the Hammer movie with Christopher Lee. Dracula was my hero. I like a Dracula.
Yeah.
Was my hero because Christopher Lee in the movie with the Terence Fisher movie, the two movies of Terence Fisher, was so fascinated. I was fascinated, but this guy was unbelievable. That movie. I like the Hammer movie. The horror Hammer movie because they were also romantic, not only just horror movie.
And Bernard Robinson is a great production designer. Those films were pretty low budget, but they never looked low budget. They looked luxurious. They looked expensive. Bernard Robinson created incredible sets. And if you watch them again, note how he was very careful about what colors he used. He used beautiful color palettes in each scene. It was just fantastic. I wish I could have met the guy. I would have loved to have had him as a mentor.
Awesome. And maybe we can talk about another question because I see something like that in the chat section. And about the Prince Adam character, we know that in the cartoon was the alter ego of the man. Was scheduled something about the movie or was immediately put out this character from the movie?
I think it was removed because it required too much explanation to the audience of who this guy was. And him having a sort of a secret identity wasn't really part of the story. We wanted to see He-Man and He-Man fighting. And we didn't need to see his other little guy. Really, it would have just distracted from the main story.
Okay.
So I met Christopher Lee when I was working on Conan the Barbarian because we were sharing offices with Steven Spielberg, and Christopher Lee was in 1941. And so he wanted to be in Steven's next film, which was Raiders of the Lost Ark. So he was trying to use me and Ron Cobb to convince Steven to hire him. So he was in our office every day pushing us to try to talk to Steven about his being in Raiders.
You ever meet Christopher Lee?
Oh yeah, he was in our office all the time. He was trying to get Ron Cobb and I to tell Steven to use him in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You have some story about Christopher Lee.
You could always hear his voice before you saw the man. He had a huge booming voice, and he loved his voice. he was funny. I have a life mask of Christopher Lee. It was cast from his face.
Wow. And he was a tall guy, I believe. He's really that was tall.
What was that?
Was a tall guy, Christopher Lee.
Yeah, he's really tall. Yeah. But he's really tall, but he was, he had done most of his great work in the Hammer films of the late 1950s, early 1960s. So he was very conscious about appearing old and not wanting to appear old. So when he would come into our office to talk to us, he'd always be wearing blue jeans and clothes to make him look a lot younger.
Awesome. And you work also, you mentioned that before, in another awesome movie of the 80s. You work in both Conan movie.
Yes. Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, and also Red Sonja, which was originally going to be a Conan movie. But the script was so bad that Arnold Schwarzenegger said, if you call my character Conan, I will not appear in the film. You need to call me something else because this is a terrible screenplay.
Okay, you told me something about Arnold Schwarzenegger last time, that he is a special guy, that is some special if to understand the people in the same time during the work in progress of the movie. You can tell me something about that?
Sure. You want me to tell you the same story I told you? I can do that.
I don't know. Maybe you told me about something about the shape of his body last time, I believe.
Yeah. So we had a poster of Arnold on our wall in the art department, and it had his statistics. How much he weighed, how big his muscles were, how tall he was, and it said he was 6'3". Well, I'm 6'3", so I was curious to meet Arnold. Then the director, John Milius, came in one morning and he said, Arnold is going to come over today. He's been practicing his sword moves, and so we're all going to go out to the little park and watch Arnold do his moves. And he said, oh, great. Okay, fantastic. About an hour later, this guy comes into the art department. My first reaction is, holy cow, this is the most beautiful human being I've ever seen in my life. He's an Adonis. What was Arnold? And I said, and also he lies about his height because I'm 6'3" and I'm looking down on him. He's not 6'3". So we went outside to watch Arnold do his sword moves, and he had been practicing. He was terrific. He was just great. But Arnold has an incredible ability to be able to read people. And he saw something in director John Milius's eyes that concerned him. And so he said, John, there's something wrong, right? And John said, oh, no, nothing's wrong. He says, no, I can see something's wrong. You're bothered by something. And Milius said, well, there's nothing you can do about it. And Arnold said, it's my body, right? And Milius looks at him, body? He says, yeah, my body. I have a bodybuilder body. And you want more of an athlete body, right? And Milius said, yeah, that'd be great. But, what can we do? Arnold said, so if I trim off here and I trim off here, and he starts showing his legs, and he's trimmed his legs, and then you'll be happy. And Milius said, you can do that? 2 weeks later, Arnold returned to show John what he had done. He completely resculpted his entire body through diet and exercise, and he completely changed what he looked like. And now he had a more athletic body rather than a bodybuilder body. And it was at that point I knew that if this man has a goal, nothing will stop him from achieving that goal. He is so focused. Really, it was incredible to see that he could change his entire body in just 2 weeks.
Wow. Well, it's interesting because if you watch the movie, you never wonder that this type. Also, because it's difficult to understand the person behind the actor, and and he has this skill, this ability to understand what the people means is interesting. because it's typical of a real a true artist, I believe, because the artists have some different way to understand the people, in my opinion. For example, to me, I can understand the type of person that they meet just for a picture of the face, because if you can read a face, you can feel the type of person that you have in front of you, because the face reveal not just something, but many things about the mind of the people in general. So it's like to read a book if you can read a face. I have this ability. I discovered this ability especially because when I start to write so much in my novel, because the basic inspiration for a writer is the people, every people that you meet, but also the people that you can meet or you can meet just for 1 second.
Yeah.
So that give me like a energy to understand the people, just to see pictures of the face of these people. I discovered that I understand that in general every artist has a different type of feelings to understand the people.
Yeah, and it's funny how quickly sometimes you can assess just what this person is or what they're like. A friend of mine, his name was Jim Rumpf, and he was a sculptor, and he made ceramics, beautiful ceramics. He had a studio in Topanga Canyon. And it was back in the 1960s, and lots of people would just come into the studio, look around, and leave. And it was very loose and very casual back then. And this one guy came in. It was a short little guy with long hair. And right away, Jim sensed there was something really wrong with this guy. And he couldn't wait for this guy to leave the studio. He says, I was getting the weirdest, darkest, most evil vibe from this guy. Till finally he left. And Jim said, I was so relieved. And he found out a few days later that was Charles Manson.
Wow.
So without even having to speak to Manson, he could tell just by his presence, his aura.
Yes, you can feel the vibes of the people, in my opinion. By the way, is a good talent to try to don't meet the wrong people in general, no?
Yeah.
But sometimes you made the mistake, especially if you meet a beautiful girl, but you know that it's not maybe a problematic person, but it's too beautiful, and you falling in this mistake.
Yeah, well, I think it's important if you meet a beautiful girl to see what her mother looks like, because that's what she's going to look like in 20 years. That's and also watch the way she treats people who are in a lower position than her. Is she rude to waiters and waitresses, or is she nice to waiters and waitresses? That's a good indication of character.
Yes, exactly. And we talked last time a little bit about an awesome karate that you have also a collaboration I saw in your website. You tell me some fun story about David Lynch last time. You remember other story about Lynch? Because last time you told me about a story, but when you had some lunch with David, and sometimes he talk in his office and shows to you the guys, and the other times I mean I don't remember the name of the insect.
They were all Woody Woodpecker dolls. You know, the cartoon woodpecker. 6 of them, they're all the same, but he had a different name for each one. It's crazy. I've been posting on my website a series I call Untold Tales of Hollywood. And I started with my first film, and I'm going through each film. And right now I'm finishing up on Godzilla King of the Monsters. So the next film is Conan the Destroyer. So today I was at my studio going through my flat files and pulling out all the Conan the Destroyer pictures. And I found 2 caricatures on napkins, one that I had done of David Lynch and one that I had done of Raffaella de Laurentiis. And then I did a finished version in full color of those and discovered those in my studio today. So that was a treat. I didn't know I still had those.
Also, you never meet also another interesting character. Talking about Jodorowsky.
Who?
I don't know what the pronunciation is correct. Jodorowsky.
No, I would love to meet Jodorowsky. He was good friends with my friend Mobius, with Jean Giraud, but he was also good friends with Dan O'Bannon, the man who wrote Alien, and he wrote also Blue of the Living Dead as well. So, did I tell you about the story of the holy marijuana?
You know, if you never meet Jodorowsky, but you didn't, I believe, because for a few moments.
I would love to meet Jodorowsky. Dan O'Bannon told me the story about when he first met Jodorowsky. He had seen Jodorowsky's films, El Topo and Holy Mountain. So Jodorowsky had called Dan O'Bannon. He said, I saw you did the computer effects on Star Wars. I would like you to be my special effects supervisor for Dune. And Dan said, well, come over and let's talk. And so there was a knock on the door, and he opened the door. But instead of this long-haired hippie that he had seen in those Jodorowsky movies, here was this man in this beautiful, expensive suit with his hair, gray hair, perfectly coiffed, everything in place. I mean, he looked so elegant. And that was Jodorowsky. So Jodorowsky came in and told Dan O'Bannon how he wanted to do Dune. He was going to cast Salvador Dali in the film. Orson Welles was going to be in the movie. He had incredible dreams and imaginations of what this movie was going to be like. And after he finished, Dan O'Bannon agreed that he would do the film with Jodorowsky. And Jodorowsky then said, would you like to try some holy marijuana? And Dan said, I would. So he lit it up and they smoked. And Dan said he got so incredibly high. And at the same time he was so high, Jodorowsky was telling him this extraordinary story, this magical story. And at one point, Jodorowsky said, and it looked like this. And suddenly 20 years dropped off of Jodorowsky's face. He was 20 years younger. And he continued to tell Dan the story. And Dan is just like, holy cow, this is holy marijuana. This is unbelievable. And then Jodorowsky finished the story and went like that. And all the age came back on Jodorowsky's face.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Then Jodorowsky put together a phenomenal art department, which had Jean Giraud, Mobius, H.R. Giger, Chris Foss, and then Dan O'Bannon brought in Ron Cobb. And that was going to be the art department for Dune. But then the financing for Dune fell apart. And at that time, Dan O'Bannon got a phone call from Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott says, look, I just bought your script for Alien. I understand you're in Europe right now. Why don't you come over to England and help me make this movie? And Dan said, you know what? I've got this unbelievable art department here. It would be a shame to break up. Would you consider using them to design the film? And Ridley Scott thought about it and said, well, have them come over too, and I'll look at their work. So he ended up hiring everybody. And that changed filmmaking forever, because up until that point, if you wanted to be a production designer, you had to spend about 20 or 30 years working as a draftsman, then another 10 or 20 years working as an art director before you could even think about being a production designer. But that was changed by two movies. Star Wars, where George Lucas hired Ralph McQuarrie really to design the film. And Ralph was an illustrator. He did not come from an architectural background like most production designers back at that time. And then the other one was what happened with Dune, where it was designed by these fantasy artists and cartoonists like Ron Cobb and Mobius. And it gave the film a completely different look that no one had ever seen before. And that was what opened the door for guys like me to get into the film business. If the film business had stayed the same, they never even would have had me come in for an interview. But because of my experience of being able to work on films with Ron Cobb and with Mobius, I became a viable and very important production designer in the world of Hollywood.
Awesome. And tell me now, to we turn in another movie that you worked. Tell me something about what happened, how start, and the story about the Return of the Living Dead movie.
Sure. Well, the original zombie film was Night of the Living Dead by George Romero. It was co-written with a friend of his, whose name escapes me right now. Oh, George Rousseau. And they had an agreement that Rousseau could make a sequel to the film, and of course, the director could make a sequel. Rousseau had written a sequel to Night of the Living Dead called Return of the Living Dead, and somehow it ended up in the hands of Dan O'Bannon, and because it needed a rewrite. So Dan rewrote the entire screenplay. I don't think he kept any of what was in George's original script. But in the process of writing the screenplay, Dan felt, this is the movie. I need to direct this film to protect my screenplay, and I know exactly how to make this movie. And once again, Dan O'Bannon was a very close friend of Ron Cobb's. And Ron was a very gregarious guy. He would have lots of parties at his home in Santa Monica, and he'd invite all the top musicians and filmmakers and makeup guys and writers to these parties. And he would always invite me. And usually I would bring along some work that I was working on to just get feedback from the people at the party. And whenever I would do that, Dan O'Bannon would be the first person in line to look at the work. He was fascinated by what I was doing. What I didn't know is that he was considering me to be the production designer for The Return of the Living Dead. And he was looking at my art to see whether or not I had the strength as an artist to do that. And I brought in a cover for a comic book I had done called Alien Worlds. And it shows a spaceman, an astronaut, sinking beneath the surface of the Earth. And he's surrounded by all these little creatures that are going to devour him. And when Dan O'Bannon saw how I designed the astronaut spacesuit, he was concerned prior to that I would not know how to do the high-tech elements of the movie. But when he saw the spacesuit, he told me his thought was, aha, Stout can do high-tech. So when he began hiring people for The Return of the Living Dead, he had a very short list of who he wanted to be as the production designer. It was me and Bernie Wrightson. Bernie Wrightson was the creator of the Swamp Thing. And so he gave those names to our line producer. The line producer did what he should have done, which is he did his homework, and he found out that I already had a record in film. Bernie Wrightson did not. I think Bernie was working on his first movie, which was Ghostbusters. But I had already done about 5 or 6 films. So I think Bernie was Dan's first choice, but the producer lied to Dan, and he said, you know, I called Bernie and he passed on it, but I got you Stout. So he had never called Bernie, actually. He just called me, and we cut a deal. And so that was, that wasn't my first film as production designer, but it was the first film where I worked as a production designer that got made, because prior to that, I worked for 2 years on a Godzilla film as production designer that didn't get made. So Dan and I, we were already sort of friends, and we hung out together. We would drive to the set together, and he'd tell me these fantastic stories. And he really is the guy who gave me one of my biggest breaks in film by making me the production designer for that film. One of the reasons he was attracted to my work is he and I were both fans of the EC comics of the 1950s, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, Crypt of Terror, things like that. And so when he came to me, he said, Bill, I want, you know how there are principal actors and principal characters in film? I go, yeah. He says, our film is going to have principal zombies. I want you to design zombies the public has never seen before. And that got me excited, because I love doing stuff that no one's ever seen before. That's my favorite thing. Anybody can copy something else, but to come up with stuff that's original, that's the fun part. And so I started coming up with all these different zombie designs. The very first one I did actually was Tarman. There was no description of Tarman in the script. It was just his name, Tarman. And I think it said something like he dripped a lot. So I did my first drawing of Tarman and showed it to Dan O'Bannon. He said, you nailed it. That's perfect. That's exactly the way he should look. And so we were off and running and making the film, which is now one of the biggest cult films I've ever encountered. It is more popular today than when it first came out. It's unbelievable. When they announce a screening in Los Angeles, it'll sell out in minutes. And so I'm really proud to have been a part of that motion picture.
Awesome. There is a nice
Is
question.
that your church bell?
Yes, the church bell. Yes.
Oh, that's neat. That's great. Now I feel like I'm in Italy.
And the weird things is also because every time ring the hour, and after a few minutes ring again the same hour.
Just in case you forgot.
Yes, exactly. I don't know why. There is a nice question by one of the fan of this channel. When you create characters, do you ever draw upon attributes from people you meet in real life?
Yes, I do. Especially if I've been with people that are very unusual. Sometimes like an actor. An actor will study all kinds of different characters around him in real life, and he'll pull parts of them into creating the character that he needs to create for the film or the stage play. And so I'm the same way. I like to remember unusual characters that I meet in my life. And plus, I like to travel around the world. And by traveling around the world, I meet lots of interesting characters that I wouldn't meet if I had just stayed home. In Antarctica, I met some of the bravest and most adventurous people I've ever met in my life. It was absolutely incredible. So I think all of that, the travel, the meeting people, it feeds you as an artist, and it gives you material to work with that you wouldn't have if you never left your studio.
Yes, I understand that because also to me as a writer, the people that is a big inspiration in general is I think is for every artist like that, because we are human being, and so other human being give to us something, energy, vibes, a little details also if you want, because sometimes we create characters and this character has many things with different person at the same time. So is important also, is normal in my opinion for an artist to get inspiration for real person also. I believe, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, this is just all work to me as a writer.
I think you're absolutely right. My friend Mobius was another person who loved to travel and loved to meet people. And he took a trip to Venice, Italy, and he was there for 2 weeks. And that resulted in 2 books just of his drawings that he did while he was in Venice, that inspired by the beautiful architecture, inspired by the gondolas, inspired by everything he saw in Venice. It's incredible. It's incredible.
You ever visit Italy?
Yes, of course. When we were making Conan the Barbarian, originally we were going to make it in with our offices based in Zagreb, Yugoslavia. Then the accountant of the film, he didn't want to live in Zagreb for the next year or 2. And so he started to make up lies about Zagreb and how it wasn't a good place to make movies. We wouldn't be able to get any of our supplies or materials there. And so he suggested we move to Spain, mostly because he had a house in Spain. So anyway, so the production decided to move from Yugoslavia to Spain. And Rafaela de Laurentiis came to me and she said, Bill, you have a choice. You can come with us to Spain. We won't be ready to work for a couple of months. You can do whatever you want in Spain and we'll still pay you. Or you can go to Rome and live in Rome. We won't pay you, but you'll get to live in Rome for the next 2 months. And I said, I pick Rome. So I lived in Rome for a couple months. And then I fell in love with Italy and the Italian people. Every day, the daughter of our set decorator would pick me up at my hotel, and she had a little Vespa motor scooter, and she would take me to a different museum each day. And I'd go to the museum, see all this beautiful art, and then get back on her little Vespa, and then she would take me home, and her mother would make me a wonderful Italian lunch. So I was in heaven. That was a fantastic time. Plus, I was also meeting tourist girls and things, and having a great time. The other time I went to Italy is I do a show each year called Comic-Con International. It's the biggest comic book convention in the United States. It's in San Diego each year. And I usually spend several months preparing for that show. So my family doesn't get to see a lot of me. So as a reward for their patience, after Comic-Con, I would take my family on a 1-month vacation somewhere in the world. And one year I decided to go to Italy. I wanted to see Venice because of what Mobius had done in Venice. But I also wanted to see the rest of Tuscany. And I had a show come up that was in the Netherlands. I was a guest at a comic book convention in Holland. And after that was over, I told my wife, I said, we are going to go all over. And she was delighted, and I was delighted because, each city was so different. The food was different, the architecture was different. I got exposed to so many incredible things in Italy that I fell in love with the country and the whole lifestyle and the sort of the cadence of the lifestyle, that people weren't rushing around like little busy bees in New York City. They had a much more open approach to life. To me, it felt like the Italians celebrated life, whereas in America, people celebrate work. I think the Italians have a better idea. I think it's so much better to celebrate life and use the work to help you celebrate life.
Yes, maybe in Italian depend also in which part you go in Italy, because if you go in Sicily, in South Italy or Rome, you find people that celebrate especially the life. But if you go in Milan, for example, in North Italy, they looks like a New Yorker guy a little bit.
The thing that really surprised me was finding that they didn't use garlic in Tuscany. To me, to every American, garlic is associated with Italian cooking. But what I found out was that's Southern Italy that uses lots of garlic, not Northern Italy.
Yes. And there is a nice question back to Master of the Universe, I believe. Yes. Do you know they made one of your concept sketches of He-Man into laser light He-Man? Is there a way you can see more of your work in a portfolio again?
Well, the easiest way to see more of my work on Masters of the Universe is to pick up that German book, because I've got 130 pictures in there. You can see all the pencil sketches that led up to the final characters. You can see different designs for the final characters. You can see set designs. You can see designs for Skull Mountain, all different kinds of things. But I didn't know about the laser He-Man. That's new to me. I'll have to look on the internet and see if I can find one.
Yes, me too. I didn't know that. And you work also in the Godzilla movie. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah, I spent 2 years on that movie. What happened was, this was back in the early 1980s. I was doing lots and lots of movie posters, but I was also doing something called presentation art. That's when a producer or a director has an idea for a film, but nobody wants to sit and read a screenplay. So they'll hire me to do a painting that captures what the film is like. That's called a presentation painting. They present it, and they say, the movie is going to look like this. And there was a producer named Sandy Howard. Every year he would come to me with 12 titles of films. He'd say like, okay, Terror Train, teenage girls terrorized on a train. And so I would do a piece of art to go with that. And he would take the 12 pieces of art to the Cannes Film Festival or to MIFED, and on the basis of the title of the film and the art, he would get financing for all 12 films. It was a much simpler and easier way to make movies back then. So I had a reputation for doing very successful presentation art. And I was contacted by Steve Miner. He had produced Friday the 13th, and he directed Friday the 13th 2 and Friday the 13th in 3D. And he wanted to do a new version of Godzilla, an American Godzilla, and he wanted to do it in 3D because he had just done a 3D film, so he understood all the techniques that were necessary to be successful as a 3D picture. So I did a big painting of Godzilla attacking the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, because the film took place in San Francisco, and he starts out the first time you see Godzilla is when he wrecks the Golden Gate Bridge. And Steve loved that. And then he found out that I had done storyboards for films. And since there were going to be special effects in almost every scene of Godzilla, he needed to have it boarded so that we could all be on the same page when it came to what the special effects should look like. So I started drawing these storyboards, and I drew pretty elaborate storyboards. They're about this big, and they're filled with detail. And at that time, I was friends with Mentor Huebner. Mentor Huebner was one of the greatest storyboard artists who ever lived. He storyboarded North by Northwest for Alfred Hitchcock. He was one of the 2 storyboard artists for Blade Runner. Storyboards I was doing for Godzilla, and he said, Bill, with all the information you're putting in these pictures, you're really the production designer. You should ask about being the production designer for this film. It hadn't occurred to me until Mentor mentioned it. So I called Steve Miner and said, Steve, would you consider me to be the production designer for the Godzilla film? And up to that point, Steve had been very happy with my work. Well, he's a smart guy. He called all kinds of different people in Hollywood who had worked with me, and they all gave me glowing reviews. So he called me back. He says, you're now the production designer. So I started putting together my dream art department. I had Rick Baker building me a gigantic robotic Godzilla head. I had Dave Stevens, the creator of The Rocketeer, and Doug Wildey, the creator of Johnny Quest, doing storyboards for me. I had David Allen, who was going to do the stop motion animated Godzilla. This was not going to be a guy in a suit. This is going to be a realistic creature. And then Steve Cherkis, who later became famous for his dinosaur sculptures. He began work as a stop motion animator, so I had him build me the first stop motion Godzilla with all the middle parts inside so that you can move him and pose him. So it was a dream project. We had an incredible script by a young man named Fred Decker. It was one of the best screenplays I'd ever read. It really gave the film a lot of heart. The film was told from the point of view of a 13 or 14-year-old boy who is fascinated by lizards. He's got a pet lizard, and he develops a connection with Godzilla that Godzilla does not have with any other human in the movie. And so it's a powerful, powerful story. The problem was, because there was effects in almost every scene, it was obviously going to be a very expensive movie. And at that time, 4 big budget films just flopped at the box office, the main one being Heaven's Gate. And so for a period of time, all the studios were saying, big budget, no way. And so Steve would do what he felt he had to do, which is work his way up the chain of command at each studio. And he would get yes, 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 until he'd get to the top guy, and the top guy would always say no. So eventually he had to give up his dream of making this American Godzilla film. And that was really my first film as production designer, and I learned an enormous amount. I also taught Steve a lot. One of the things I did is when I was storyboarding, I would pick particular kinds of music to go with the storyboards to enhance the feeling of what we were seeing. And at the end of the film, Godzilla dies on Alcatraz, which I think is just incredibly poetic. And it's a long sequence, and the boy who is friends with him, he has to be the one who sacrifices Godzilla, even though he loves Godzilla. So I put together a soundtrack on cassette of this incredible Peter Gabriel music. And wow. Steve Miner came over to look at the end of the film. I played that music to go with it. And Steve turned to me, he said, I never realized how important music was in a motion picture. This is amazing. And so he said, when we finish Godzilla, I want you to direct my next film, Rodan. So, but we never got to make Godzilla, so I never got to make Rodan. Part of the problem was also, Steve had directed Friday the 13th 2 and 3. The heads of the studios didn't know whether he could direct a more sensitive film like Godzilla if he had the directing chops to pull that off. Well, later Steve proved that he could do that. He directed several great episodes of a show called The Wonder Years, And he showed he really had the talent as a director to do stuff that was very deep and very human. But unfortunately, he didn't get that chance with Godzilla.
Oh, this is sad.
It is sad. It's the movie I wanted to make. I still would love to make it.
You ever meet Peter Gabriel?
No, I would love to meet Peter Gabriel. I'm a big fan of his music.
Yes, he's awesome. And I want to share with you my consideration about the special effect and visual effect in general. And I want to understand what do you mean, what do you think about that? I think that if you watch 80 movies like Master of the Universe, for example, also Ghostbusters, for example, in my opinion, those visual effects, special effects, were more realistic than today, because today we know the technology growing up very well. But when I watch some movie with visual effect, it looks like to see a video game data movie. It's too much virtual, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. It's so frustrating. I was very excited when I found out that Universal was doing Van Helsing, because it was going to have Van Helsing, Dracula, the Frankenstein monster, the Wolfman. And my sons saw it first. They said, "Dad, you're not going to like it. It looks like a video game."
Yes.
I hate that. I hate that.
Me too. I don't like it. I like the visual effects of the 80s, like Masters or like Ghostbusters, because they were realistic. When you watch Master of the Universe, the special visual effects looks like realistic in the reality. Or like the cartoon movie Roger Rabbit, for example, the Roger Rabbit movie looks like to see the cartoon character along with the human being. Today is just a video game, in my opinion.
Right, and there's so little life in those CG characters. It's very frustrating. Ray Harryhausen was a dear friend of mine, and I was friends with Jim Danforth, two of the greatest stop-motion animators in the world. And when I watch their creatures, even though they aren't technically as realistic as what you can do with CG, to me they are more real because I can see the spirit of the man inside each of those creatures. When I watched King Kong, I know that Willis O'Brien was a boxer before he was a special effects guy. And I can feel him inside the King Kong character, whereas I don't feel that ever with any of the CG characters. There's not that sense of a spirit inside the creatures.
Yes. And you work also with the movie A Princess of Mars, is correct?
I worked on 4 different versions, but not the one that got made.
Tell me something about that.
Sure. I'm a big fan of the writer Edgar Rice Burroughs. He created Tarzan. He created John Carter of Mars. He created Carson of Venus. He wrote about 100 novels. And I love his stuff. And I found out that Disney wanted to do a John Carter of Mars movie. Now, they've been trying to make John Carter of Mars movies since the 1930s. And it's just the technology wasn't there. It was very frustrating. Bob Clampett, the cartoon animator who created Beanie and Cecil and worked for Warner Brothers, he wanted to do a full-length animated feature of John Carter of Mars. And he did some samples that you can watch on the Beanie and Cecil DVD. So I get a call from Hollywood Pictures, which is Disney, and they say that they're going to do A Princess of Mars as a motion picture. And I said, well, great, fantastic. And they want me to come in. They want me to come in so that they can meet me and see my work and see if I would be a good designer for the film. So I did. It was the worst interview of my life. After about 5 minutes, I'm thinking, oh my God, I think I've seen more movies than I've made more movies than these people have seen. They had no clue as to how to make a movie like this. And I could tell that right away. And I could tell how scared they were and how green they were. It was terrible. One of the first things they said to me, they said, now, are you familiar with the books? I said, yes, I've read them each about 3 or 4 times. I'm rereading them now to my sons. They're fantastic books. And they said, well, you know the creatures, the Tharks and the Thoats and the Zitidars. And I said, yeah. She said, well, let's get rid of all that and come up with something new. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. These books have been around for 100 years. Maybe it's those creatures that are part of what brings readers to these books. And you just want to throw it out before even trying to achieve that on the screen? It sounded insane to me. But I didn't say that to them, of course, because I was, it was a job interview. But then we got to the negotiating part, and I said, well, is my company's policy that I keep all the original art that I produce? And they said, well, we're Disney. We keep all the original art ourselves. I said, you don't need the original art to make the motion picture. All you need is good copies of it. And then they said, well, we've talked to a lot of good artists who don't have a problem with that. And I thought, okay, interview over. I'm going home. This is crazy. Mars. And then I got called by Buzz Feitchens. He was my line producer on Conan the Barbarian and First Blood. And Buzz said, Bill, I'm doing this film now. It's called A Princess of Mars. I go, oh, yeah, I know that really well. He says, I know you know it really well because you talked about it when you were working on Conan. And we would like you to come in and be the production designer on this film. The director is John McTiernan. He just did Die Hard and The Hunt for Red October. So I thought, wow, great director. So I came in and I started working on the film. Basically, the art department was just me, nobody else. But my office was right next to the director's office, John McTiernan's office. And they kept giving me new scripts. Every script was different. And one script was really stupid and funny. John Carter was this sort of gum-chewing idiot. Another script, he was heroic, but a wisecracker. And none of them captured the feeling of who this John Carter character was in the novels, which just astounded me. But then I thought, well, they didn't do it because it's too hard to do. But I'm thinking, well, that's why you make the big money. It should be, your job should be hard if you're making that much money. So one day I was working and I hear John McTiernan say out loud, Virginia. Does he have to come from Virginia? He should come from a much more butch state like Alaska. And I put down my pencil and I walked into John's room. I said, John, let me explain to you about John Carter. He was a captain in the Confederacy during the Civil War, and he lost. He's one of the greatest warriors who ever lived, but he was on the losing side and he was devastated. So he tried to run away from that world. So he goes to Arizona. Now he gets swept up in the Indian Wars. The Apaches are after him. And then he goes to Mars where they're having a world civil war. And that is where he realizes, oh my God, this is my destiny. This is what I was meant to do. I am the greatest warrior of two worlds. And I said, if you make him come from Alaska, you lose all that. So please keep him from Virginia. And then I started to give some really intense design to the film. I didn't want to do what everybody else had done before me. I love Frank Frazetta. I love Roy Krenkel. I love their work. I love what they did for the Burroughs books. But I knew I had to go deeper than that and richer than that. And so I began to think of Helium, the main city where John Carter and Dejah Thoris comes from. It's a city in the middle of a civil war. It's sort of like Beirut in a way, in that the farther you go on the outskirts of the city, the more ruins there are because of all the fighting of the forces that are trying to capture the city. They're getting closer and closer on the edges of the city, and the city has lost people like architects and builders because everyone has been drafted to be a warrior in the Civil War. And so that was moving along. For one of the big problems was the technology to create the creatures that existed in the John Carter of Mars books just wasn't there yet. And so I was designing suits for camels and elephants, which in my opinion was going to look very stupid and very disappointing. Then Jurassic Park came out, and John McTiernan came into my office and he said, Bill, we can do all the creatures CG. This is great. And I said, John, how much CG do you think was in Jurassic Park? And he said, it's everywhere. It's all through the movie. I said, no, it's not. There's 2 minutes. No, I'm sorry. There are 12 minutes of CG in that film, and it took them 2 years to do the 12 minutes. The rest is puppetry by Stan Winston and his crew. And John got really depressed and walked out of the room because he knew I was right. And so anyway, that he had what they call a pay or play deal, whereas at a certain point, if the film doesn't go in production, he gets paid. So the film didn't go in production, he got paid, and the project was dead. Then I got called by the Conrad brothers. They had just done a great movie called Sky Captain. Fantastic film. They showed me, took me to a screening of it that was at Comic-Con, and I was blown away. And I came up to him, and afterwards I said, you know, this is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. If you guys ever want to work together, I would just love it. And they lit up. They were so excited because their next project was A Princess of Mars. And so they called me up. And we had this incredible art department. It was me, Mike Kaluta, Bernie Wrightson, and several other really talented people. Ian McCaig, a great designer. And the first meeting we had, Ian went around the table and asked each artist, what should this movie be? And Ian and I had the same answer. It's the greatest romance ever told. It is a romance and a love that transcends 2 worlds, 2 planets. And that has to be the core of what this film is about. And then I got into a dispute in regards to, I think it was at Warner Brothers at that time, and they wanted to keep all the original art. And I said, no, you don't need the original art to make the movie. So I keep all the original art. So I was on the film for 1 day. And then it finally ended up back at Disney. And they had a guy I thought was a good director, but I'm told so often by directors, casting of the film is 90% of directing. If you can cast the film correctly, 90% of your work is done, and you don't have to worry so much. And I think that Disney film was miscast. John Carter seemed like he was too young to be a captain of the Confederacy, and Deja Thoris seemed like she was John Carter's mother, not his romantic partner. And without that chemistry, you didn't have the core of the story. So it came out the way it came out. And then there was also a regime change at Disney. And the new guys who were hired had to kill all the projects that their previous, the guys whose place they were taking, the ones that they had approved. Because if any of what they approved became a hit, it would make the new guys look like idiots. So they killed John Carter before it was even released. They started bad-mouthing it 2 weeks before the release of the movie. And then they did everything they could to destroy the success of that film, and they were successful in destroying the success. Very frustrating.
Yes, I can imagine that. It's not good, especially when you work hard for a project. This frustration results because someone tried to take another project and it's not good.
Yep. But,
and you work in... Sorry.
Oh, the question I ask whenever I'm on a new phone and I'm in the art department, what's the greatest film you ever worked on that didn't get made? And it's fascinating to hear the answers.
Yes, and my question was something like that, because my question is, what is your favorite, you work in many movies in your career, what is your favorite movie that you worked?
The favorite experience or the favorite outcome or the favorite film itself?
The favorite experience.
Oh, favorite experience?
Speaking of creativity, about this side of your work, the creativity, your satisfaction, and in the end of the movie, something like that. That
would be Godzilla, King of the Monsters. That was a fantastic project to work on. I'm still so sorry it didn't get made. As far as movies I'm proud of, Return of the Living Dead, I'm very proud of. That was one of the hardest films I ever made. because I was still fairly young in the film business and was trying to learn as quickly as I could. Masters of the Universe was a lot of fun to work on because the production was so screwed up. There was no way I could be late on anything. And then let's see, I got my film list here. I learned a lot working on First Blood, the first Rambo movie. That was because I was working with a great director, Ted Kotcheff, and a great director of photography. He taught me a lot of things about filmmaking. And then let's see what else. Pan's Labyrinth, getting to work with Guillermo del Toro. That was a fantastic experience, and it resulted in an amazing film, a really great film. I only worked on Stephen King's The Mist for one day because I got diagnosed with cancer the next day. In that way, I designed the spider creatures that are in the film. And I really wanted to work on that movie because it was being written and directed by Frank Darabont, who was a very close friend of mine and who made one of the greatest films ever made, which was The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes, awesome movie. That another movie inspired by another story of Stephen King, by the way.
Yeah, incredible. He did 2 Stephen King stories. He also did The Green Mile as well.
Another awesome story. You ever meet Stephen King?
No, I'd love to meet Stephen King. I met his son, who's also a writer.
Yes. Owen, I believe the name. He has made different songs that also as a writer, by the way, I believe. The following the father footsteps.
Yeah, I had fun working on The Prestige with Christopher Nolan. It was a different kind of job for me. The Prestige is about 2 rival magicians and their descent into madness. And so Christopher Nolan contacted me and he said, I want you to do fake 1900 posters for these magicians. Do your research and look at what the kind of art looked like back then for magician posters. And then I want you to do a series of posters for the Hugh Jackman character and a series of posters for the Christian Bale character. And I want the posters to reflect their descent into insanity. And they were used in the film itself. There was a scene, unfortunately it was cut, where one of the magicians is at the printing place where they're using stone lithographs to print the posters, and he pulls a new poster off, and it's my poster, and he holds it up to show the magician and get his approval. So that was a fun one to work on. One of the greatest movies that never got made, I got a phone call from Jon Favreau. Fantastic director. He directed Iron Man. Great, amazing director. And he and I had been looking for a project to do together for several years. And he called me up. He said, Bill, I think I found the project for us to do. He said, it's called Magic Kingdom. I said, well, I can guess where it takes place. I assume it's Disneyland. He says, you're right, it's Disneyland. And he said, it's about a family that is falling apart. It's a dysfunctional family. They're falling apart. And there seems like there's no hope for this family until they realize the one place that all of them have been happy together was Disneyland. So they decide to give the chance of their family coming together one more opportunity, and they all go to Disneyland. But as soon as they get there, they're split up. And Disneyland becomes real. The Jungle Cruise has got real African animals in it. It's got real crocodiles, real hippos. The Haunted Mansion has real ghosts. You're being shot at by real frontiersmen and Indians in Frontierland. And I said, John, you probably don't realize this, but I put myself through art school working at Disneyland. I know that place inside and out. I know where all the hidden tunnels are. I know everything about that place. And then I spent 2.5 years designing Disneylands for the Walt Disney Imagineering Company. And so I said, I know all that stuff. And then he said, well, I'm co-writing this with a great writer named Michael Chabon. I go, Michael Chabon, who did Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, that won the Pulitzer Prize. This is, now I'm worried now, John, because it seems too perfect. It seems, oh my God. Well, it was perfect. It was a dream job. Every week I would drive over to Jon Favreau's house, and he was still in the process of writing the screenplay with Michael Chabon. And he would take out a couple pages and circle things and say, show me what you would do with this. And I'd say, you want to give me direction? He goes, no, I want to see what you come up with. I said, can I do anything? Can I really go for it? He goes, yeah, go for it. So I started designing and creating entire musical sequences and, just loads of stuff. I designed a haunted mansion that you could see. It was sort of built like a dollhouse so that you could see in each room what was going on. And it was similar to what Jacques Tati did in one of his films and similar to what Jerry Lewis did in one of his films. And I was having a blast. And every 2 weeks, I'd bring the stuff over to John. And then he would go up to San Rafael. Oh, the other thing, this was going to be the very first Pixar-Disney collaboration of a live-action film. And so this is really going to break so much ground in the film business. I was incredibly excited. So each week, or every 2 weeks, up to San Rafael where Pixar was, and he would show them the paintings that I was doing and talk about how the script was progressing. After one of his presentations, John Lasseter, the head of Pixar, walked over, held up one of my paintings to the room and said, the movie has to look exactly like this, which is one of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten in my career. And things were just going just great. And then the attorneys got involved and turned everything to mud and killed the project. Very frustrating. But that was the most fun I've ever had on a film.
Yes, I understand, because was also the story was a big push for a creativity. This stuff that also the concept, because sometimes when a family split, have some problem, family feud inside. Sometimes the creativity, the world, the land of the magic, creativity of the childhood at Disneyland Park, it looks like to or find the child that you lost. Maybe if you connection with your child, you can understand your son at the same time, and maybe you get once again the magic of the life that you lost. So this idea also that a family to become family once again in a Disney park, they become magics, is a cool stuff, in my opinion. A good concept to give you a big push for your creativity, in my opinion. The subject also was good, and not surprised that you start to create this awesome stuff. I understand, because it's a big push for a creativity, in my opinion, a subject like that.
Yeah, too bad. Yeah, it was interesting working at Disneyland. I had a job doing watercolor portraits in New Orleans Square, and I was making more money than my father. It was because we were paid by the portrait, and I was doing 80 portraits a day. I would sketch them in with a brown pencil and then paint them with watercolor. And I think we charged $3.50, and I got $1.50 of that. But at that time, that was an enormous amount of money.
And now, to back in the beginning of your career, what is the reaction of your parents when they understood that you want to be an artist in your life?
Well, that was pretty amazing, because I was going to be a doctor, and I studied science and math all through school. I got A's in science and math, and then my last 2 years of high school, we moved to a different city, and the new high school I went to was horrible. I wasn't learning anything. The teachers really didn't care about teaching the students, and the school had a policy of sports events. You had to go to pep rallies. That was mandatory. You were not allowed to ditch a pep rally. Well, I really don't care about football. I really don't care about baseball or the sports. I care about learning. And so I would sneak away, and I would go to the school library, and I'd try to educate myself, because I knew I wanted to be a doctor, and I wasn't getting that education in school. And they would give me detention for doing that. They would punish me. And so after towards the end of the 2 years, I thought, you know what? I'm going to graduate. I'm going to be behind everyone else in medical school by 2 years. There must be something else I can do that I like. And well, I loved art. And so I changed my major to art for my very last semester of high school. And then my family was incredibly poor. There was no way that they could afford to send me to a college or a university. They couldn't even send me to a city college. That was too expensive for them. So I took a test called the SAT test. It's a test that every high school kid in America has to take. And I got perfect scores on my SATs, perfect scores in English and perfect scores in math. And so the state of California gave me a full scholarship for 4 years to any university I wanted to go to in America. So I picked California Institute of the Arts, now known as CalArts. And my friends thought I was crazy. They said, you could go to Harvard, you could go to Yale, you could go to Princeton. Are you insane? You're going to an art school? What a waste of a scholarship. My doctor friends tell me it was the best decision I ever made. And I have to agree. I think I've got the best job in the world. I'm much happier now as an artist than I'm sure I would have been as a doctor.
Yeah,
but one of the things that helps me as an artist is, you know, I do lots of dinosaurs and prehistoric reconstructions. Well, in order to do them accurately, you have to be able to read the scientific papers, and most artists can't do that. But because of my science background, I can read those papers very easily and work with these scientists and get them the results that they want.
Yes, I think also that an artist is an artist before to discover that also. So when you make this decision, you find also the true yourself in that time, in my opinion.
Yes. Plus, my art school had an incredible policy in the illustration department. I was an illustration major. And they said that if you get any work on the outside, real jobs, you can turn them in lieu of your homework. So in my last 2 years at art school, almost everything I was turning in was real jobs. So it made the transition from academia to the real world absolutely seamless. It was just great.
And by the way, academia is the same word also in Italy to the School of Art. It's called academia also in Italy.
Did I tell you about my experience at the academia and the Statue of David?
Yes, I remember. The Stendhal syndrome. Yes, I remember.
Yeah, I went crazy.
I remember that story.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's the magic of, that is the magic of the art, in my opinion. No.
Yes.
Because
when art can move you to tears or to laughter, it's almost like a medicine for the soul.
Yes, a medicine for the soul. I agree with you. I also discovered that in my life, because in the bad moment of my life, the art was my not just escape, but also my way to understand what happened, to reborn a little bit, because it's like I consider myself like a phoenix, the bird, the phoenix.
Yes.
I wrote also a song in Italian about the phoenix, the fly of phoenix in Italian is another title, obviously, because I like this concept, because an artist following his passion, following his feelings, so sometimes goes into the fire like the phoenix, but he rebirth because the art gives is another life every time, in every bad time, because is a big medicine, is a big escape also to find another world, to recreate yourself a little bit, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, art also became my escape from poverty, from the poverty of my family. And because of my talents as an artist and skills as an artist, I got to enter worlds I never would have been able to enter if I had not been an artist. Working with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and all these other incredible people. Yeah.
You worked also in the Muppets Wizard of Oz.
Yes. Oh, that was a great script with a terrific director. I wanted it to be a theatrical release, but they would not let us do that, unfortunately. But I got to work with my friend Kirk Thatcher. Kirk Thatcher was a fan of mine when he was a kid, and then he grew up and became a terrific Muppets director. and he had a great script. And The Wizard of Oz is something I've always loved. I began loving it when I saw the MGM movie with Judy Garland, but also I ended up collecting all the books too. I have a complete set of all the first editions of all the Wizard of Oz books, and they're absolutely incredible. There's a great sense of humor that runs through them. They're very positive and funny and life-affirming. And so when I was called by Kirk to work on the Muppets Wizard of Oz, I was delighted, and I had a great time working on that. I don't think the film came out as well as it could have been if we had made it a theatrical release with a different cast, but I didn't have control of that.
I like the Muppets, by the way. It was when I was a kid, it was my favorite show, the Muppets show. Also, I like this stuff a little bit goofy. I like that because I like this character, the Muppets in general. They create their own show, are a little bit sarcastic and stuff like that. I like the Muppets concept in general. And you worked also in the Men in Black.
Yes. The Men in Black, I was working for Steven Spielberg, designing a series of video clubs, gaming clubs called GameWorks. And the phone rang, and it was Industrial Light and Magic. They were working on Men in Black, and they said, look, we've got a huge problem. We just spent 9 months designing this big bug creature at the end of the film. Vincent D'Onofrio turns into this creature, and we showed it to Steven Spielberg. He said, not scary enough. So the Industrial Light and Magic panicked because they're running out of time. The release date of the film was fast approaching. And one of the guys there said, hey, he loves Bill Stout's stuff. Why don't you give Stout a call? So they called me up, and I started sketching while I was on the phone. I started drawing on the back of an envelope what I thought the creature should look like. And they said, we'll send you pictures of the creature that we've done. You need to make it look scarier, but don't change it too much because we don't have time to redo everything from scratch. And so okay, not a problem. So the next day I had the drawing finished, and I faxed it to them, and that became the big bug Edgar at the end of the movie.
There is some comments for you that people shares for you. I read for you something.
Okay.
Brianna says, wow, you are an amazing artist, William.
Oh, thank you so much, Brianna.
Happy Pursuit says, lol, awesome stories, so cool.
Oh, thank you.
I know that you have a lot of story, and the reason why one interview is with one interview, also with two, is not enough to have your story, because I like, in general, I like your philosophy as an artist, because you told me last time when you work at, also you use the music, you told me that, and you follow in your creativity. I like it that you are in this business, art business, and you still with the same passion. I like that. These things. You're still authentic. It's not easy because sometimes the people that become popular and work, and that, like I know, for example, in Italy, I'm a friend of some famous musician, because as a musician, as a singer, I work with them. I open some concert of them with some of my song, and sometimes I watch them that create a song just because there is a contract, but lost their passion. Another my friends that work on TV, and I was a special guest of him. Sometimes I'm meeting him. He work in a new series on TV, a TV show, a talk show, but he was sad because he didn't like his job. Is this type of talk show. Sometimes the people that become famous become lost the passion, maybe because they made the wrong choice sometimes also. Because an artist needs to make the right choice, to have the right way to feed your talent, to feed your creativity. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I tell my students, if you want to become famous, do the same thing over and over for 3 or 4 years. That'll make you famous. But I said, I can't do that, that is not what I want to do. I want to experience everything. I want to experience all different kinds of worlds. And so because of that, I'm one of the most difficult artists to collect because you never know where my work is going to appear next. So that I call that the slow path to fame. And then I think having kids are also great at keeping you grounded and keeping you level. I remember I was at Comic-Con one year and my son Andy was with me. I think he was 6 years old. And a fan came up and said, "Oh my God, it's William Stout. You're famous." And my son said, "No, he's semi-famous." Just keeping it real.
But for example, I made interview with many guys, YouTuber, toy maker in this channel, designer. But for the designer, you are like an idol, because when I told them William was my guest, they saw, wow, amazing William Stout, because because I think your philosophy that your choice in your career shows that you save your creativity in that business, in my opinion, and the other true artists understand this way and love that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And one of your viewers mentioned stories. My favorite thing about working on movies is the stories I bring away from them. And then I'll tell you my favorite story. Did I tell you about the invaders from Mars, Martians, and the United States Air Force and the Marines?
No.
Oh, okay. This is my favorite movie story of all time. Okay, I was working on a remake of Invaders from Mars. The screenplay was by Dan O'Bannon. It was being directed by Toby Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And we had sent the script to the United States Air Force because we needed a lot of military vehicles for the movie. And we hadn't heard back from them. Now I'm starting to get nervous because our shooting date is starting to come up, and we need to have this equipment. So I called them up, and the Air Force guy says, "We're sorry, we cannot cooperate in the making of your motion picture." I go, "Why? You're the Air Force. You're the good guys. You saved the day. You killed the Martians. You saved the world. What's the problem?" He said, "It is the official position of the United States Air Force that there are no Martians and there are no UFOs." I said, "Are you kidding me? That's why you're not going to work on this film?" That's, oh. I thought, we are doomed. And then my storyboard artist, Keith Crosley, gave me a card. He says, "Call this guy." And it had the guy's name, and it said United States Marine Corps Public Relations Liaison. So I called him up, and I said, "Look, we need military gear. We would love to have the Marines help us out with this film." He said, "Well, I need to read the script." I said, "You will have a script within 1 hour. I'm sending a messenger over with it right now. You'll have this within an hour." So he got the script, and the next morning I called him because I didn't want to wait anymore. And I said, "Did you read the screenplay?" He says, Yes, son, I read the screenplay." And I said, "So are the Marines going to help us out with the making of our motion picture?" He said, "Son, you will have the full cooperation of the United States Marine Corps in the making of your film." I said, "So there's no problem with the United States Marine Corps' policy on Martians and UFOs?" He said, "Son, it is the official policy of the United States Marine Corps that the United States Marines have no qualms whatsoever about killing Martians." True story. So that's why the Marines are in that movie and not the Air Force.
And you worked also in the Dino Riders for Marvel Animation Studio.
Actually, what that was there have been a whole number of dinosaur television shows for children. Whenever that happens, they always hire a paleontologist or some dinosaur expert to be their advisor on the show. That's where the job ends. They never listen to what I say. They never do any of the things I suggest. They just want my name on there so that if a parents group comes and says, "Hey, we thought this show is going to be educational. We're worried about that." And they say, "Look, we have William Stout as the paleontology advisor on this. So, everything's great and as accurate as possible." which is, of course, not true. But I did work on an animated series called Dink the Little Dinosaur, and I designed what are called bumpers for that series. They would show you, say, 12 minutes of the Dink story, and then before they went to a commercial, they would show you one of my bumpers, which was factual information about dinosaurs I did the drawings and they got animated. And they would do that before each commercial. So I designed a whole bunch of those for Dink the Little Dinosaur. That was a fun job.
Awesome. We are, how many time do you have to continue our conversation now? Because we are close to 2 hours. Because
I got time. Did I talk to you last time about the Jim Henson dinosaur movie?
No.
Oh, okay. So I love Jim Henson, and Jim Henson, he makes the Muppet movies, but then he makes what he calls his serious Muppet movies. The first one was Dark Crystal, and the second one was Labyrinth. Well, his daughter Lisa Henson was working for Warner Brothers at the time, and she wanted to make a television series about paleontologists who had a feud in the late 1800s, and they were responsible for digging up and naming about 2,000 different dinosaur species, including the ones we're all familiar with today. So she decided she would have a vacation in the Bahamas with her father Jim to talk about this dinosaur project. And so they were on the beach, and they had stacks of dinosaur books that they were looking through. And her dad said, "Look, Lisa, I want to do my next serious Muppets movie. I think maybe it should be about dinosaurs, and then we can test how to make realistic dinosaur Muppets for your series." So that's what they were trying to come up with, and that's what they were doing. Well, their maid came down to the beach to serve them lunch, and she looked at what they're doing, and she said, "You think those are dinosaur books? Those aren't dinosaur books. I'll show you a dinosaur book." And she went back into the house, and she brought back my book and gave it to them. And so they looked at the book, and this is everything they wanted to see about dinosaurs. That it was all new information. They went slow, they were fast, they took care of their young, some had feathers. And then they turned to the last page, and there's my biography, and it explains that I've worked in motion pictures. So they thought, he's the perfect guy for this. So Jim made Lisa promise that she would contact me when she got back to Los Angeles. So she called me up, and she told me what they wanted to do, that they wanted me to design a realistic dinosaur Muppet movie for Jim Henson. And I thought that sounded great. And so we had a meeting with Lisa and with Jim Henson, and we spent about an hour saying, wouldn't it be great to do a dinosaur Muppet movie? And then the meeting ended. And we had another meeting where that happened. And I thought, this isn't going anywhere. So for the next meeting, I wrote a screenplay. And at that meeting, I read them the screenplay. And they were like, that's our movie. This is great. And they showed it to Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers said, we're going to give you $25 million to make the film, which was at that time a lot of money. And $5 million more just to do research and development on Muppet dinosaurs. And so we were happily working away on our project. And then I got a call from a producer friend of mine who said, Bill, I've got some really bad news for you. I was just over at Steven Spielberg's and Kathleen Kennedy's offices, and they've got your children's book, The Little Blue Brontosaurus, and they're making it into a movie. And I said, wow, they didn't even option it from me? That's terrible. And so Jim Henson found out about it, and he was lied to. They told him, well, yeah, we're making a dinosaur film too, but we can have ours out 2 years before yours. So Jim thought, well, I don't want to look like the guy who was just imitating Lucas and Spielberg, so he killed the project.
Wow.
Several years later. But one of the happy things is because of that screenplay, I got into the Writers Guild. So I became a Writers Guild member, which is good. So several years later, I'm working at Walt Disney Imagineering, and I'm in a meeting, and Jim Henson is walking down the hall. He sees me in the meeting, and he pulls me out of the meeting and says, Bill, I got great news. Our dinosaur film is back on. I will call you in 2 days. And 2 days later, he died.
Oh,
yeah.
This is
so
so sad.
I'll never know what that meant. So
It's a sad, but also a little bit poetic, also because you never know what is good news. But I don't know. This is sad, but there's something poetic, also, in my opinion. This sad ending, in my opinion.
I just feel so lucky that I got to meet and work with Jim Henson, who is one of the nicest people on the planet. And I think
Yes.
you can tell that whenever you see he's on television being interviewed, you can tell how nice he is.
Yes, yes, I understand that also because sometimes in a career of an artist, you have the possibility to find some beautiful people sometimes.
Yes.
Also happened to me also, for example, in Italy. Sometimes when you meet, also when those people passed away, they still alive in yourself because they gave something to us that's still inside of us, in my opinion.
Yeah. I was friends with a great science fiction writer named Harlan Ellison, and he said the bad thing about going old is losing your pals. And he's right. I've lost three of my closest friends and greatest creators within the last couple of years. Harlan Ellison, Ron Cobb, and I just forgot. That's terrible. Okay. Harlan, Ron Cobb. Well, it'll come to me. But yeah, but the thing is with Harlan, he made tons of videos. So if I'm feeling lonesome for Harlan, I go to YouTube and I watch some of his videos. And it's like being with Harlan because you're never having a conversation with Harlan. Harlan was holding court. So you just listen to him tell these spectacular stories. Oh, the third guy, of course, is Jean Giraud, Mobius. I was very close to Jean, and I got to see him just before he passed away. And he was a big liar because he said I was a genius, and I'm not a genius. Jean is a true genius.
And I believe that many people still to think about you that you are a genius, my friend.
No. I've worked with geniuses, so I know the difference. Ron Cobb was a genius. Jean Giraud was a genius. They're working with those two guys. It was like sitting next to fountains that gushed great ideas all day long, seemingly effortlessly. It was very intimidating and inspiring at the same time. I'm a competitive person, so when I saw this happening, it made me work much harder and become much more focused because I was in the presence of greatness and I wanted to be a part of that.
Awesome. I like this philosophy. Also because give you growing your talent again. This philosophy give you opportunity to become better, and I think is the good challenge for an artist in every project. Find something to become better. In my opinion.
Never stop learning. Never stop learning. There's always another plateau to ascend to as an artist.
Yeah, yes, and every time you do something, you learn something. Also, when I start a new novel, I learn something also on writing because writing, I think like drawing is like to find a way, the good way to become better, also like an artist because. I don't trust so much to the school to become a writer. To me, the good way is write. If you write and also read, obviously, but write is the good way to understand how to be a good writer, in my opinion.
That was the philosophy of my friend Ray Bradbury. Ray said, if you're going to be a writer, write constantly, hours and hours each day, because you need to get all the bad stories out of you so you can get to the good stuff.
Exactly. And also because if you, in the past, for example, I wrote, now I also am a YouTuber, so I have many projects at the same time because I have two YouTube channels, this one and another one in English. So I have two YouTube channels, but for example, in the past, in 6 hours a day, I create maybe 12 pages on my book. Now with 4 hours, I can do the same number of pages because it's like a gym. It's like a gym, In the past, in the beginning, you need to work with more hours, and like to become an athlete of the world. You can be better. You can do the same things with less time because you understand how to follow your idea a little bit.
Yes, it's the benefit of having that experience of years of being an artist.
For example, it's a long time. I believe the last song that I made, that I wrote, could be possible 10 years ago. But if someone give me an opportunity to do a song, to sing a song in a contest that I like, I need just one day to create a song. Also everything about the song with every instrument, because I did song for many years, 10 hours a day. That could mean I still in my mind that this stuff a little bit.
Yeah. It's all good.
How many time do you have? Because we are over 2 hours now.
Do you want to stop? Come back some other time?
If you want, maybe the last question, if you prefer.
Okay.
The last question is, and now, obviously I want you back again because every time that I talk with you, also because there is some things. When you are an artist and you meet another artist, you feel awesome vibes that you can feel with another person. And when I meet you every time, and I feel good vibes, and also this the good connection that you can have also with another artist. So I like this conversation with you for that, especially.
Yeah, in Spanish we call it being simpático.
Exactly. In Italy, it's called sintonia. Well, I don't know what is the English. Maybe chemistry could be a little bit a good translation for that.
Yeah.
Sintonia is when two people have the same have something similar, and that a good connection.
Yeah, it's like sharing a spirit.
Exactly. And my last question is: you did awesome stuff, awesome work, awesome art, but still in your desk, a dream that you want for your future as an artist?
Well, the favorite work of everything that I do, I have two favorite things. One is painting murals for museums. I love doing that. It's big art. It's not this, it's this. And usually the murals that I do have animals. I love to paint animals. Most of the murals that I do are prehistoric, but not all of them. And it also, those murals become an artistic legacy. They will be up on the walls long after I'm gone. So when my children or my children's children or my great-grandchildren come to those museums, they can see the work that I did. So it's an incredible artistic legacy. I know when I go to New York or Chicago, the first thing I do is I go to the Natural History Museum to see the murals by my hero, Charles R. Knight. He was the man who defined dinosaurs visually for the rest of the world. He designed, they used his designs for the dinosaurs in King Kong. They used his designs for the dinosaurs in Fantasia. So I hope to follow that same path. The other thing I love doing is comic books. It's like making movies on paper, except you don't have all the budgetary restraints. And one person can do everything, whereas on a movie, one person can't do everything. And so it rises and falls on how good you are and how connected you are and how skillful you are as a writer and an artist. So unfortunately, comic books don't pay, and the mural jobs come by very few and far between. So in between that, I'll do stuff like I'm doing now. Like lately, I've been putting together book collections on the history of my work, and with the text being autobiographical. So my next set to come out will be a 3-volume box set on all my work for comics. So the work I did commercially, the work I did for Marvel and DC, the work I did for the for advertising work, for Mattel. That'll all be in that 3-volume box set. I'm also putting together a book on all my underground comics, and a book. My most requested book is a book on all my music-related art. So all my album covers, CD covers, concert flyers, concert posters, things like that. And since I'm a pack rat, I keep everything. So I've got access to really deep dives into my deep history. And it's people have approached me and said, why don't you write an autobiography? To me, that's too intimidating. But by writing it in small chunks like this, that makes it doable in my mind. So that's what I've been working on lately, and putting that all together and just having a good time looking at the old stuff. And some of that stuff I go, how on earth did I do that? I don't think I could do that now. So it's fun to revisit some of those old pieces.
Awesome. And now, my friends, I go to the piano. And when I go to the piano, it's time to say goodbye. But don't cry, my friend, because Bill will return with other story about this awesome career. Thanks for watching, my friends, and thank you, Bill. See you soon. Good night, my friends. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, guys. Goodbye to everyone. Thank you, Bill, to be on my show once again.
Happy to do it. Let's do this again.
Awesome. And we do again the chapter 3 with Alan and Bill together.
Okay.
Goodbye to everyone. Goodbye.